Okay, so I think a lot of us are in. Thank you all for participating in the chat. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ikra Nahid. I am the Vice President officially of USG, unofficially co-presidents with Aaron Grandma. And today is just an event to talk to you guys about student leadership and things you need to know when running a club. We have an awesome panel of about 5 to 6 speakers from our club director, our USG Treasurer, GSO representatives, GSO President Louis, as well as Hamilton from Student Affairs and Jessica from Central Depository, and they will all be talking to you about important information you need to know about running a club. So just to get started really quickly, in case some of you don't know, I'm just going to explain quickly what undergraduate student government is. So USG is sort of the governing body of elected student representatives for the student body. And the biggest thing we do is legislation and advocacy. So we can write resolutions and propositions about different things we think are needed to improve student life. So one of the biggest ones over the past year was like the credit, no credit legislation that we pushed really hard for and extended to the fall semester. Other things that we do is there's a cabinet and a senate, and we sit on different committees within BC governance and USG governance. So BC governance is within the Brooklyn College administration. There's a lot of different committees that decide things about how the college runs, and there's student representation on that, which is super important. So when we want to push something directly to administration, there's specific committees we can go to. For example, Aaron has been pushing that the Everbridge app gets combined with the BC Navigator app. If you guys don't know, if you want to be on campus this semester, you have to use the Everbridge app to show your vaccine verification and your BC Navigator app to show your ID. But he's been pushing to have them integrated so it can all be in one place and go smoothly for the students. So essentially our goal is to improve student life in any way we can in the issues that we can see. Also, we host a lot of fun events. We're trying to do some movie nights on the quad. Obviously, a lot of events have been virtual. We're trying to push to more in person, but our speakers will be speaking about that later today. Also, we are the governing body in charge of the student activity fee as well as the budget. So we are the ones who are deciding how much funding goes to clubs and grants for club events. Two important committees within USG for that are the Club Funding Council and the Club Affairs Council. So important people for you to know are the club director, Samia Ahmed, and the treasurer, David Dweck. And they will also be speaking right after me to tell you more about that. Quickly, if you ever have anything, the first people to go to is probably USG, and we are available just about everywhere to talk to you. We have a website where you can find a lot of information at bcstudentgov.org, as well as our support email, support@bcstudentgov.org. We get back to you as soon as we can, as well as you can reach out to us on all of our social medias at bcstudentgov. So now I'm going to be throwing the floor to David Dweck, our treasurer, to speak more about Club Funding Council, grants, and more. David, are you here?
I'm here. Thank you. Thank you, Ikra. So the most important thing that I do over here for USG clubs is to allocate the club budgets and club grants. Now, these are two separate things. The club budgets are allocated in the beginning of the year, and club grants are allocated throughout the year. Now, many of you have probably received an email from me asking for you to fill out a budget. If you have not received an email from me, that either it is in your spam, which happened to a bunch of people, so please check your spam, or alternatively, your club has not yet finished Spark training and is still frozen. In that case, I cannot allocate you any money. If you have just completed Spark training, I may not have gotten that update yet, so just don't worry, hold on, I'll get to you soon. If you want, you feel free to send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. For grants, those will be given throughout the year as needed. Now, keep in mind, it's going to be a bit different this year because we are online. So most events that are going to be held on campus, or if you try to hold an event on campus, they need to be approved individually. They're not going to be basically automatically approved. So a lot of your grants are going to be conditional on your ERF being approved. Keep in mind, you cannot submit an ERF unless you have money in your budget. So please come to me first. I will myself with the Club Funding Council, we will go through your event, we'll vote on it, and we'll decide if we do allocate you money, then go fill out your ERF. I'll notify Jessica so that she knows that everything's good. If you have any questions about the process or anything you don't understand, just let me know. Just for a quick summary, budgets in the beginning of the year, fill out your budget request. I'll get back to you with how much you start with. Throughout the year, as you hold events or special needs arise, grant requests will be filled out. The budget request process has already been sent out. The grant request process, not yet.
Thank you, David. Also, if you have any questions during this, put them in the chat at the very end. We will be having an open Q&A with Hamilton and Jessica, so they can directly answer all of your questions. So next up, we have our USG Club Director, Samia Ahmed.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samia. I am, as Ikra said, the USG Club Director. So what that entails is kind of all things related to clubs, although like Hamilton, he knows a lot more, and we'll talk about, Hamilton will talk about what he does. I am in charge of getting new clubs up and running. So as Jasmine was interested about the linguistic clubs, although that was already active, clubs like English is Lit, for example, they are interested in, they enjoy English, so they wanted to start a club. And all you really need is like a petition, constitution, and an e-board. And we'll talk about where you can find all that information in a bit. My email is samia.ahmed@bcstudent.gov.org, but you can find me at different emails like clubs@bcstudent.gov.org or USG Club Director @brooklyn.keenan.edu. All that will be shared to you. I have emailed everyone in this chat. That's how you guys were able to get into the Zoom. If you're also a part of the WhatsApp chat, I highly recommend that if you're not, that you're on it. And if you have any questions related to any of the councils I'm on, so the Club Affairs Council, if you are a new, if you're a club that wants to get started, the Club Affairs Council gets to decide if you get to be a club or not. The Gender Equity Task Force, Ikra and I, as well as Jonathan and a bunch of other lovely ladies are on it. And we all try to do as what the title says, provide gender equity on BC campus. And I'm also part of the Brooklyn College Association. So if you guys ever have any questions about that, feel free to contact me. But I will talk a little bit about where you can get all this information on the next slide. So this is the BC student government website. So I'm gonna put the link for that in the chat right now. And this has pretty much everything you need to know about. It'll be officially updated regarding all things club next week by the weekend. And so right now, if you're just thinking about, I want to get a club started, you need a petition, a constitution, and an e-board. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me and I can walk you through it. And if you haven't heard, if you've emailed about starting a club but haven't heard, just go ahead and email again, just because it's a transition period from last USG Club Director to the new one this year. And everything about Erfs, everything about where to find Bulldog Connection, all that stuff is on this website. And Bulldog Connection, I'm putting in the chat right now. This also has the BC Handbook, the club handbook. I'm putting the 2020 club handbook in the chat, or I'll try to put it in the chat. If not, I will email it to everyone. But all that information is on this website right here. It's all organized based off of the different organizations on, like the different departments on the club. And yes, and David will be posting the WhatsApp group chat link momentarily for anyone who needs it. Thank you, David. And now I can go ahead and pass the mic to Hamilton.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you to both the leadership of GSO and USG for putting this on. I'm glad to see that we have a good number of student leaders here that have actually joined this. There's some very important information that's been said already, and there's some more information to go. So thank you for being here. So where am I going to start with? I think I'll start with who I am. For those that do not know me, I am Hamilton Raymond. I'm the Associate Director for Student Activities. My job entails being a liaison for student government, and also I oversee all the clubs within Brooklyn College in regards to registration, helping submit ERFs, guidelines on when to run events, how to run events, and things of that nature. So for those that are asking questions about club registration, I'm directly the person that you would need to speak with to get that activated. So I will segue into that first, and then I'll move along rather quickly so Jessica can go. So for club registration, what's happening currently, we still have a good number of clubs that are missing Spark training. So what usually happens is around the end of May, or mid-May rather, there's an email that gets sent out about re-registering your club. Clubs go inside Bulldog Connection, they would re-register their club, submit e-boards. If they have any amendments to their constitution, they would do so, and submit Spark trainings, and the club gets activated by July 1st when officers, when the new officers take on the responsibilities of running the club. This year we had 70 submissions, but we had entirely way more clubs that started submitting after the deadline for registration. Now that can cause some issues because the later you submit your club registration, the later you can be activated, later you can do events and things of that nature. So I recommend submitting it when the time is set. I know it's difficult for individuals to find some board members to replace the time, so that's why I'm willing to work with the club now to get it activated. Spark training is very, very, very important. If Spark training is not submitted, the club cannot be activated. The club will remain in pending status, and then eventually the club will get denied, and they'll have to go through a re-registration process. Now, also too, the university is cracking down on Spark training, and if you don't complete it, they will put a hold on your account. So it goes beyond just getting activated for the clubs. It becomes a university issue. We have some clubs that are missing significant sparks, right? What you need to get your club activated, you need at least your president and your treasurer to get the club activated. Those are the two most important roles on the e-board. Not saying the other roles are not important, but those are the two most important roles on the e-board to get your club activated. So if you have trouble finding a vice president, a secretary, a club connector, that's okay. You can add those at a later time. But as long as you have a president and a treasurer who submitted a Spark training or willing to take those roles on, then we can move forward. Prior to when pre-COVID, we used to have what's called a signature card in order for you to get funding. The signature card is held out of the Central Depository office, which I think it's can hint on. That has been waived last semester and will be waived again this semester because of the circumstances that we are in with the virtual learning and distance learning aspect. But once we get back on campus, whenever that is, we will resume the signing of the signature cards. What else do I have for the club registration? Moving forward, I know you guys are going to ask some questions about which the club is activated or not. I would recommend doing that separately. Email me separately, and I can respond individually to let you know the status of your club. I saw something about Linguistic Club. I just recently had a conversation with the president of that club, and all the sparks have been answered. They were activated. So if you have any further questions regarding that, I would recommend email me, and I'll put my email in the chat so you guys can reach me directly, and I can speak to you individually about the statuses of your club. Samia, do you want me to continue to go, or do you want to go on to slides? Because I saw ERFs and I saw blackout dates, things of that nature. I don't want to speak out of turn.
We can talk about GSO maybe first, and then Jessica, and then we can talk about all the specific that you just mentioned.
Okay, sounds good. So I guess I'll turn the mic over to GSO.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Just touching base with everybody. I know that this is very healthy number of undergrad clubs. For those of you who are graduate students and are interested in having your clubs move forward for the semester, you're able to reach out to myself or to Tom. Yehudis is also on the call with us today. And we also have Anna Matarazzo and Alyssa Taylor. For those of you who don't know, Alyssa was actually USG President a couple of years ago. So between the 4 or 5 of us, we should be able to help you out with your graduate student needs. I am also open to collaborating where there are interests across undergrad and graduate clubs. So if there are those types of situations where graduate students want to do things with undergrads or vice versa, that's a conversation that we can have and discuss with our USG counterparts. I think at this point, make sure that you do your Spark training. And of course, I'm saying that to myself as well. And besides that, I think we'll be open to Q&A at the end of this overall presentation. But I think that's it for now. And I have to say that the USG has a very thorough presentation. So just kudos to you.
Thank you. And now we're going to turn over the floor to Jessica Bradley, the Associate Director of Central Depository.
Thank you, everybody. I love that picture. Just want to excuse the background noise behind me. Life is happening in my house. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jessica Bradley Tamaro. I am the Assistant Director of Central Depository. And what that means is I'm going to be working with all of you on your student activity field. I've been at Brooklyn College for 17 years, so there's a lot of knowledge up here. So please, if you have questions related to budget, please let me know. A few things I just want to touch on as we go through this. I will be working very closely with David and Tom, both from USG and GSO. Specifically, the goal is to get funding to the club so that you can do things and have campus life on the Brooklyn College campus, whether that's virtually or in person. Each of the student groups does recommend or give GSO or USG what their needs are for the year, and then it will be their determination to determine how much money you have. I will always, for the budget portion, I will always refer to them as your allocating bodies. They're responsible for allocating money to you. Something important to note as well is we work on a fiscal year. Our fiscal year starts July 1st. It ends June 30th. So the one thing I will impress to each of the groups is that we do have timelines and deadlines for certain things, for purchasing, for doing things, for having events. Please be mindful of all those things because they all tie into budget. Everybody has been talking about Erfs and all these things. I want everybody to understand registration for your organization is first and foremost the most important things to happen for a club, and then budget comes second. So David touched on it as well. If you are not a registered club, you cannot have funding. It's just as simple as that. Once you are registered and GSO and USG can verify your registration, like I said, they will be responsible for giving you budgets. So please, through this, note who you have to contact. USG, it's going to be David Dweck. For GSO, it's going to be Tom Santiago. And I know in previous slides, their contact information was there. I will also put my contact information specifically when we're getting through this program, if you have specific questions. Two quick things, and then we'll pass it over again, is this is student activity fee. What that means is it is fees that are collected at the time of tuition for a specified purpose, which is enhancement to the college life, the benefit of the student body as a whole. So I need to just let you know, student activity fee cannot be used for individual purposes. It cannot be used for alcohol. It cannot be used for gift cards. It cannot be used for anything of monetary value that's given to an individual. I say that because people tend to purchase things or do things without conversation and then say, hey, I purchased this gift card. Why can't I get reimbursed for it? Because that's an individual thing. When you think of student activity fee, I want you to think as financially responsible as possible and what program, event, item, thing that you're purchasing and utilizing your budget for, how could that be of a benefit to the Brooklyn College body as a whole? Okay, so I will preach to you all year financial responsibility. Secondly, in addition to, thank you USG for pulling together all of the club leaders and setting up this club leader list, as clubs register and once we finalize registration, I will be setting up a treasurer's working group and I will be sending any pertinent deadlines, due dates, information that I feel needs to go to the club treasurers, because as Hamilton also mentioned, you need a president and a treasurer to function. They need to be two separate people, because when we look at financial responsibility. It cannot be the same person that's okaying the same thing. Must be two separate people. And from my perspective, I'm always going to reach out to the treasurers because they are the most important people in my world. So we're going to create a treasurers working group. I will be getting information to the treasurers in that way. And the only thing I really will ask in relation to budgets and all of these things that are moving forward, there's a lot of moving parts to this, is please be patient with us. USG is doing a really great job, and GSO, of pulling people together and getting information to them, but the information is different and it's constantly changing. So just be patient with us as we get through this year. And I think that's it for right now. Last thing, we will be hosting, Central Depository will be hosting a club budget basics workshop in September. The goal is to do those monthly, and we'll probably be doing them in consultation with GSO and USG. But we do have one upcoming in September. I don't have the date just yet, but we'll go a little bit more in depth. So those will be emailed to the treasurers once we're ready. They will be open to anybody, but just, look out, be on the lookout for that. We will be using also Bulldog Connection as a way to share that information. So pay attention to the news posts, pay attention to your Bulldog Connection, because that's another way that Central Depository shares info. Who am I passing it over to?
Thank you so much. So I think Hamilton is just going to go into some specific topics now. And then as soon as we're done with that, we will be open to Q&A.
Perfect.
Thank you, Jessica. The next thing we're going to talk about is ERFs. Hamilton?
Thank you so much. And Jessica, as I go through this, please feel free to jump in and assist where needed, if I missed anything.
You got it.
I appreciate it. ERFs is known as an event request form. So the abbreviations are ERFs for those that are not familiar with it. With ERFs, they're founded in Bulldog Connection. Let me just reiterate Bulldog Connection. Bulldog Connection is a vessel that we are going to use to communicate with clubs, right? It's where you submit your events. It's where you submit your registration. It's where you update your club roster. It's where you see comments about your events, whether it's going to get approved or if you need more information. It's a portal that needs to be frequently used by club leaders. So event request forms are needed to be submitted before you have an event, regardless if the event is virtual. Well, we're not having too many in-person events, and I'll get to that briefly. Regardless if you're utilizing funding or not, even if you're having club meetings, you have to submit it an ERF into Bulldog Connection. If you're having an event that requires funding, it is imperative that you submit this event at least 3 weeks prior to the event date. If you submit this event 24, 48 hours prior to, the event will get denied because it will not have enough time to process the monies in order for you to pay whomever you're trying to pay to come speak, right? If you are thinking or interested in having an in-person event, there are some hurdles that you have to go through. You have to submit the ERF at least 1 month prior to the date of the event. The event will then go before a review board. The review board consists of the leadership of Brooklyn College. They will then let what's called SEMTI, it's a committee that meets to review events for clubs, whether or not they can move forward with having this event. So if you're thinking about in-person, it's going to be a month. It's going to have a lot more restrictions to it than a virtual event. So I would recommend to keep your events virtually if you can. Right? If you're not using any funding, submit your ERFs at least 2 weeks prior to the event. Events get reviewed by the committee every Friday, right? And so the earlier you submit it, the better chances you have in order to get the event approved, right? Because of the fact that if the event is in need of further explanation. For example, there are a couple of events that we reviewed today that needed the names of speakers that are coming on campus. So that's just a quick note to send to the club leader saying, hey, you're bringing someone on campus. What's the person's name and a quick bio, and boom, you submit that gets approved. No biggie. Some other events may require more things to be submitted in order for you to get approved. So the earlier you submit it, the better chances you have of getting it approved. Jessica, did I miss anything? You want to add on to anything?
The only thing I really want to stress is the timeline. Just when groups want to do things, again, we're going to recommend virtual. Virtual is going to be the way to go. As much time in advance as you can give to move things along. So at least a month.
Yeah.
So I've been telling everybody to think almost, and I hate to say this, but 3 months out. What do you want your group to look like? Now we're going into September. Where do you want your group to look like in October, November, December? You know, if there's signature events that your group normally does, let's have those conversations about them early. Let's work towards those dates. Because while we know that the groups meet and have like, hey, we should do this thing, the turnaround time, especially with us being kind of in this hybrid model, is going to be longer than normal. So just please give as much time as you can, give as much detail as you can in the event request forms, list out as much as you can as far as budget. And Hamilton is right. If the budget, and David mentioned this as well, if the budget is not there, the event request doesn't move. If the information is incorrect and we don't have enough information to move your event, the event will not move. So please, when you're submitting event request forms, give as much information as you can so that we can quickly review and get them moving. Because the goal really is for everybody to have events. We just need time to process. And I think it's also healthy to note that we have about 150 clubs on campus. So where each group might be submitting 2, 3, 4, 5 events at a time, know that there are other groups that are doing the same thing. So our queue gets really busy in the middle of the semester. So if you're thinking of having events, get them in. Let's work towards them, because that's the goal, is that we get them moving so that you can have a successful event. Right?
Thank you, Jessica. And I'll also emphasize 2 things, right? One, use the alternate date option, okay? That's very important. If at times your event may clash with other, well, since we're not on campus, it most likely is gonna get approved because there's everything will be virtual, but use the alternate date option as well. Second thing is virtual fairs. We're on the event topic. There's gonna be 2 fairs happening, right? Usually it is 2 fairs. There's a virtual fair, an involvement fair for clubs, or all clubs to come, usually outside, a tabling, students come get information and things of that nature. And there's a diversity fair for clubs, well, special interest, faith-based, I can't think of all the categories, but that's separate from just regular clubs, right? So this year, what's gonna happen is, because it's gonna be virtual, it's gonna look very, very similar. So I know some of you have been emailing me regarding your club not getting an invitation for the club, for the fair. If your club is faith-based club, a special interest club, a cultural-based club, religion-based club, you will get an invitation next week for the September 9th diversity fair. That's going to be the opportunity for you guys to showcase your clubs and things of that nature. We didn't want to include you guys into the involvement fair because we really wanted you to have your own time for yourself, for you guys to shine. So please, you will get that email next week for September 9th, and it's gonna let you know to register via Bulldog Connection. For those that have registered for the fair for this for next Tuesday, the 31st, I appreciate you. For those that don't fall into that club category and have not seen the registration link, it's probably because you were not activated at the time that it was sent. If that's the case, for example, Linguistic Club may not see the invitation because they just got activated yesterday. In that case, you can email denaja.davis@brooklyn.cuny.edu, and I'll put her email on here. She's the Assistant Director of Student Activities at SAIL, and she's the one overseeing the involvement fair. So just reach out to her and let her know that your club name, and you guys are trying to get into the virtual involvement fair for next week Tuesday. And I would suggest you do that today because the event is Tuesday. And I just put her information there. So I just really wanted to touch base on that real quickly so you guys don't get confusion as to why you're not getting an invitation. And again, I'll take questions regarding that during our Q&A session. It's the next slide. Okay, great. So on-campus events, and I touched base on that briefly. An on-campus event needs to be submitted at least a month prior to the event date, and it has to go before a review board. Now, keep in mind that there's a possibility that it may get denied, right? And you need to also submit a justification or rationale as to why you want to have it on campus. And it has to be a very good one. It can't be just because we miss campus and we want to have it on campus, right? It has to be a very, very detailed rationale so you want to have it on campus. Reason why I'm saying that is because students that are coming on campus, from my understanding, are only allowed to go to class and home. Those that have multiple classes can reside in a specific area on the campus and wait for their classes for the next class to go to. But students are not allowed to come to USG, GSO, sales, CD's offices without an appointment. All right, so once they get out of class, they go straight home. So if you're gonna have a tabling event, it's gonna be very difficult to attract students. It's gonna have to be outside most likely. So as students are going to class or leaving class, they'll be able to stop and say hello, whatever it may be. So have a detailed rationale, submit at least 4 weeks prior to, and if money's being utilized, submit that as well. And if you're utilizing food, submit it 4 weeks in advance because the food has changed on how we're allowing it to happen on campus. So the magic number here is 4 weeks in order for you to get some sort of on-time response, whether they're gonna have it or not. Next slide. So virtual events. Virtual events is what I highly recommend. I do know that we anticipated being back on campus for fall 21, but no one anticipated the Delta variant being as active as it is now. So I recommend having virtual events, and we are actually, whether we like it or not, subconsciously are adapting to distance learning. There's students that haven't seen campus yet, and they're about to reach their second year at Brooklyn College, right? So the virtual event is the recommended event. It's probably going to draw more students to it. As long as you're creative and given the ample time for students to be able to register, you should get pretty good events. What I want to do at the end of the year, this year, which I didn't do last year, is get an assessment from all the club leaders on how your events went. I'll be sending an email out, a survey for you to indicate difficulties, good moments, number of students that attended, just to make sure that we have some good data. And when we get to, I don't think we'll ever be brick and mortar again, but when we get to a hybrid situation, we'll have more students on campus. We can still figure out if we want to run some events virtually or not. So that data will come towards the end of the year. Next slide. Blackout dates. Blackout dates are very important as well. So as you see, winter break, spring break, summer break. During those time period, and I should also say, summer break after commencement. In order for you to have an event during these time periods, you're going to need to submit a justification as well. But that justification gets sent to me, and I'll pass it on to the SEMTI team, which is the event committee that reviews events. Justification has to be a good justification as to why you want to have it during these times, because during these times, we want to give the students their breaks, right? Finals are coming up, that study, whatever it may be, may just need to take a break from the institution period and then come back and finish off. So during these time periods, it's recommended for clubs to not have events, but if you're to have an event, you have to submit a justification as to why you want to have it during that time period. And again, you have to submit that at least 3 weeks before your event date, especially falls during that time. Oh, good. I'm done. Questions?
Okay, yes. So we're done with our brief topics that we wanted to touch on. So now everyone is free to ask a question. We ask that you either drop it in the chat or raise your hand, and we will call on you to talk. And then Hamilton and Jessica will be answering.
I think we had some questions earlier in the chat. Do we want to address those first? I just want to make sure everybody is getting their questions answered. Just bear with me.
I believe people were responding in the chat, but yes, we can get to those
Let's
first.
just double check. Austin asked, can student groups that are geared towards undergraduate students be expanded to graduate students? I would say yes, but I think that each group needs to look at their constitution. So if you're not familiar, you need to look at your group's constitution to know who your membership is. So I would say start there and then we work from there. If you are listed as undergraduate and graduate, you can go to each group for budget. But I think that should detail who your membership and who your club is open to. The Spark training was located on Blackboard. I hope that person got the Spark training information that they need. Just trying to see, there's some new messages.
Someone asked the virtual and cultural club fair, how to sign up.
So the involvement fair, which is August 31st, is going to be through Bulldog Connection. An invitation will be sent to your club, and when you get into your club portal, it's going to be on your right-hand side. It's going to ask the top right, a blue button to tell you to register for the fair. So when September 9th comes, well, prior to September 9th, you'll get the same link for the cultural-based and faith-based clubs. It'll be the same thing. Now, also, only the presidents have access to update portals for the clubs. Not everybody on the e-board does. So while everybody can see the club registration on there, but if you want to update your club e-board members, only the president of the club can do so. And all the presidents, I've given them access to for those that are active, for the clubs that are active. If your club's not yet activated, once it gets activated, I'll give the president the criteria or ability to change or update rosters and club portals.
I'm going to go back to the chat for one quick second, and we have a hand raised as well, but just quickly in answer to one of the questions, how does combined USG and GSO club funding work? We will not combine funding. GSO is a source of student activity fee. USG is a source of student activity. So if you have a group that is getting funding from two sources, they will have two accounts. We don't combine them. Apples, oranges. Okay. I think we answered the club fair question again. I'm going to jump to if you don't mind, I'll jump to the hand raise and then we'll go back into the chat. Yolanda, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, I have two questions and it's already, I already put it in the chat. So the first question is, so we're a graduate club that's very specific, but then there are other graduate clubs that are related to us. For example, the school psychology department or student in mental health counseling. So what do we do to reach out to these people and or people in social work? Also, we might also want to inform people, let's say students who study psychology or liberal arts degrees who might be interested in doing, in understanding what is school counseling like. So how do we create programs with other clubs, whether undergrad or graduate?
First, and then you can request the contact information for the groups. But then separately to the separate point of your conversation, if reaching out through your department, if there is a way that your department would share some of the club information or events programming, so just that you exist on campus, to let people know that you exist so that they can join if they're interested. Does that answer some of your question?
Part of it, but what if we want to create like joint events, or since we're a graduate club, let's say we want to do a program with a psychology undergraduate club. How do we do that?
You can do that. There always should be, when you're submitting event requests and having events on campus, there should be one host. So let's say you host the event, but you can co-sponsor with other groups on campus. So as long as that's listed in your event request and your flyer and any information that you're putting out, you are the host and they are the co-sponsors.
So to add to that, as far as contact information, this is why Bulldog Connection is very important. You can simply type psychology club. If they're active, they will pop up and you'll go into the club portal and put contact club. whoever the primary contact is for that club will receive an email. Usually the primary contact is the president. We'll receive an email, and then you guys can start the communication via Bulldog connection about collaboration. If for some reason there's no primary contact and you need the contact information, you can always reach out to me, and I can provide you the email of the person you need to reach out to, granted the club is active and they've submitted an e-board. But you can
Got it.
totally collab.
Got it. The second question is, what if, because the School Counseling Association is pretty small and the school counseling students are pretty limited, and there's only 4 CUNYs who do this. What if we want to do a pan-CUNY event with all the students who are school counseling students across Queens College, Brooklyn, Lehman, and Hunter? Like, how do we do a pan-CUNY event?
So when you're submitting an ERF, it gives you the option of having the event be private or public or open to the public. If you're going to do a pan-CUNY event, it would have to be open to the public. As Jessica mentioned, there's co-sponsors. It's easiest to collaborate with other CUNY schools than other entities, but you can collaborate with any entity that you would like. It's just when you're filling out the ERF, you'll put the number of schools that will be joining this event and the capacity of the attendees. And if there's any RSVPs, things of that nature, which if you want to do something like that, I recommend developing an RSVP just for your records. And because it'll be more likely virtual, it won't take too much to be approved. Only thing that probably would hinder it is if money's being utilized and if there's not enough money in the budget, things of that nature. But you can totally do that. Reach out to your CUNY peers and then see if they would like to collab with you, and you just have to submit the ERF.
Got it. So we should it's totally fine to take the initiative, and let's go to Queens College's website and find the president of an association and reach out to them. And if we choose to host the event, and so I'll submit it. If they choose to host an event, then they'll submit it, and then we will be like co-hosts, right?
Yeah.
If it's within CUNY.
So if they're conducting the event and you're a co-sponsor for them at their school, you don't need to submit an ERF, right?
Got it.
You'll submit the ERF if you're the one hosting it and you're bringing in the co-sponsor. But what you're doing is very recommended. I do think we should reach out more to our CUNY colleagues and do a lot more collaboration, especially given the environment that we are in currently. So I recommend it. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna go back to the chat. I'm sorry, I'm moderating this, but I just want to make sure everybody's questions get answered. I hope nobody minds.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Where do we find the ERFs on Bulldog Connection? Specifically, they should be in everyone's portal. There should be, is it a green tab that says events?
Yes.
So if your group is registered and you are part of Bulldog Connection, there should be a tab specifically that says events. If you do not see it, please let Hamilton know, because you may not have that access. So I hope that answered that question. What is the best practice and procedure for leadership positions changed during the year? This is my favorite question. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna jump in and answer it. If you have not done so, please have a transition meeting with the person in your group that is now you're taking over for. So I cannot tell you how many times in June people graduate, they leave, they take all of the knowledge of the year with them, they take the email with them, they take the contacts that they've made, and they leave. You know what happens? We have to start from the beginning. So my best practice is going to be having a clear transition meeting with your person. Whomever you are taking over for, sit down, have a Zoom, pick that person's brain, ask all the questions that you need, have that person give you access to the emails that they've been using, contact information, so you don't start from zero. Because that happens every year, and then the new incoming people get very frustrated because they're starting at zero. So I would say, if you haven't done so, please have a transition meeting. I hope that answers your question.
To add to that, Jessica,
Go ahead.
please don't make your e-board all seniors, okay? At least have someone in there that has an extra year. Because if they're all seniors, you're all gonna go and we're gonna start from zero again. Usually it would be someone who's on the e-board will transition to a position of leadership once the leadership leaves. That's the ideal thing, but sometimes it doesn't work that way. But just bear in mind, if all your e-board is seniors, then your club may be deactivated right after you guys leave.
Okay, the next, Yolanda, we answered your questions. This is directed to GSO folks. Could you elaborate on the budget request process and timeline for graduate clubs?
So as of right now, for anything over $1,000, that has to go through BCA, which requires time, like Jessica was saying. For anything under $1,000, this is something that you email Tom, the treasurer, and myself, and you give us the information that we need to make a decision. The big difference between USG and GSO is there are almost 15,000 undergraduates, and there are not quite 3,000 graduate students. And what allows us to do things is the fees that are paid for by the students. All right, so the GSO budget is not going to match USG. This is also why we would strongly recommend that if you do wish to have big events and you are a graduate organization, that you consider collaborating with undergraduates and get them excited so that they want to do it also, because that would then help you with your event planning and budget. As Jessica said, the funding, you will have two separate accounts, right? So the funds don't mingle. And depending on the number of students that are participating, let's say that you throw an event and you have, let's say, a 50-50 split, then it could be decided that the budget would be allocated either 50-50 because of the number of students, or it could be based on the percentage overall of USG versus GSO. I think it's 5-to-1 or 6-to-1 ratio. So in any event, it can be figured out. But again, this is where planning ahead is key. And if there's anything that I remember, it's that you plan ahead, you keep a paper trail, you follow up, and that minimizes the room for excuses. Doesn't eliminate excuses, but it reduces yeah. So do you think that answers your question? Let's see.
I'm gonna jump in quickly.
Yeah, yep.
Louis mentioned a very important piece, which is the spending cap. So anything over $1,000, you do need approval for. When it comes, with the exception of budget requests. So if your group is requesting $5,000 from GSO, you can submit that to Louis. That doesn't have a capped amount. That doesn't mean that that's what you're going to get. So I want to just make sure that people are aware as far as there's a purchasing spending cap and that 1,000 that comes into it, which Louis is completely correct about. But the budget requests, you can request $1 million. That does not mean you're going to get it, but it's not capped on how much you can actually request. So I think maybe that just needed to be clarified. But as far as the budget request process, Louis hit on the head, just outreach to GSO, either Tom or to Louis. Let them know what your needs are. They will meet as a group and they will determine what you need. So as far as the timeline, I don't necessarily know if that's a day, if that's 2 weeks, if that's a week. And I think as we get through the bumps of the beginning of the semester, it'll be like a well-oiled machine within the next month. But just get your requests to them so they can review them. So I think that's just the biggest thing, is just getting the info of the items that you need and what your needs are for the year. Get that to them as soon as possible so that they can start the process of looking at it. Okay.
And one last thing to piggyback off. So I have been working with a couple of clubs already over the summer. They've reached out and emailed and we've gone back and forth. I consider myself to be relatively flexible when it comes to communication. I'll actually leave my cell phone number in the chat after this. You can call and text with questions. One thing I want to emphasize, I know that we like to plan ahead for the entire year, However, you must separate what's being planned for May of next year with what's being planned for October of this year. And I would focus on the things that are happening now, because those are the things that need to be prioritized. So I've had the experience of some clubs where they want to give me everything for the entire year. And I say, this doesn't work. We're doing it piecemeal. We want to go month to month because we cannot promise that we will allocate the entire budget right now, right? It's like, let's see what we're doing. And although it does allow us to budget for later in the year. Okay, so just something to keep in mind.
Adriana wanted to know if we sent a recording of the meeting. I don't know. I'm gonna throw that back to you. I'm not sure.
We haven't decided yet. If we end up not sending the recording, we'll definitely send some notes about what was said today.
Someone asked, is the budget approval meeting from the spring different from the allocation that David mentioned earlier? Our club hasn't received any emails from David, but we have an approved budget from back in May. David, I'm going to throw that to David, but I'm not sure that any of the groups got approved budgets back
It
in
might have
May.
been, this might be a referendum club. What's the club name?
I would say, yeah, Josh, what group are you representing?
Hi, yeah, I'm from River Run, and I'm one of the people that our president left and told nothing, so I'm sussing this out as I go.
I apologize for that. You are what is considered a referenda group. The referenda groups on campus are direct student activity fee funding. So you do not get funding directly from the allocating body. You get it directly from the student activity fee for a specified purpose. So River Run specifically is a student-run publication. You should be publishing something once a year, and you have very specific mission and goals. If you want, what we can do, in the interest of time, you and I can have a conversation about more information. I can get a budget to you and we can kind of flesh out some of the things that you need to know specifically. Does that help?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, no problem.
And I'll email you separately.
That's fine. That's perfect. I mean, still stay in. You're absolutely, please stay in this group because you're getting a lot of information. So, you definitely, referenda groups, clubs that fall under GSO or USG, this is still pertinent to everybody. So thank you for coming. Is it possible for cultural identity-based, spiritual and faith-based clubs to join the involvement fair as well? Hamilton, I would think so. Yeah, right.
So it is possible. And I understand that you guys want to maximize your outreach, but the reason why we separate is because the events are going to look like exactly the same, right? It's going to be the same process, and we didn't want you guys to do something twice. For example, the clubs that got the invitation now for August 31st are not going to join the September 9th Diversity Fair. It's the same thing. The students that you see on the 31st will most likely be the same students you'll see on the 9th as well. So it really, doesn't really make a difference, I would say. But it's just September 9th, it's just the focus is on those particular club categories, and you guys can potentially promote it the way you choose to. So if you would like to, just email Denaj Davis and just ask if you can join on the 31st.
All right. Going back to the chat, if a club wants to do community service on a weekly basis, would we do an ERF weekly? No. You can do the ERF once and list all of your dates that you want to do the community service. Please, it makes it so much easier. But again, if they're going to be in person, and we've started this conversation, but if they're going to be in person, I don't know that they can be approved, but you can submit it anyway, and we can work and figure out what needs to be done to make it as successful as possible. But yes, one ERF, all the dates. So that'll make it so much easier. Samia put in some really good information. Spark training is on Blackboard. Are you not seeing, if you have any issues with the Spark training, you're not seeing the training, please email Hamilton. He'll guide you in the best place to find it if it's missing anywhere.
If it's not on there, email me your name and ample ID, and I will put it on there for you. Because through your info ID, I can give you access to the Spark training portal on Bulldog Connection. So Teresa Hayes, have you emailed me directly or student activities? I don't, okay. Well, I don't recall seeing your email, but I'll double check. And if you did send me your info ID, then I will certainly give you access. Okay.
So separate, so going back into the chat, if we answered that, do we have to wait for our budgets to be approved in order to start an ERF form that requires funding? You can submit ERF forms once you know that you're going to have an event, I would submit the ERF form. What basically will happen with the funding portion is we will review it to see if, let's say you want to have a speaker and that person's going to be $500. I will look at your budget and say, do you have that or do you not have that? If you don't have the funding currently, and there's been no communication with my office, either through David or through Tom, that funding is coming to your group, the event request form is just going to sit at a budget hold. So it's not going to move into approved status because it doesn't have budget in place. So I hope that answers your question. So you can submit the ERFs, but if everything is good to go, the budget is in place, all the information is complete, we have everything we need to move your event along, it'll move to approved. And then once it's approved, you will be able to, it'll go onto the calendar in Bulldog Connection. You'll be able to publicize your event. You'll be able to invite people to the event. That's what you're waiting for that approval process, okay? The funding is just one small hurdle in the event approval process, that if the funding is not in place, it will sit in budget holds. So just keep that in the back of your head, okay?
If you fall under that category where you have an event and you don't yet have money because your budget was not yet approved as an undergraduates club, please email me and tell me that. Please be specific. Say I have an event that's coming up over the next few weeks and I need a budget approved. This way I can get the club funding council together and get your thing approved faster.
Zach brought up, I think I elaborated over that process over $1,000. Zach, if you have specific questions, you can just let me know to that, but I believe I touched on that. That's a spending cap. So every group cannot, if you have a speaker that you want to bring to campus and that speaker is $1,500, you need an additional approval for that, in addition to having funding for that. That's where what's called the Brooklyn College Association comes in, and they're the approval body for any large expenses. So if you think that any of your groups are going to have very large expenses upcoming in the semester, please reach out to me and I will set you up and let you know if you're going to need approval and set you up on how to get that approval, okay? Samia answered some questions as well. Spark is on Blackboard, anything. Brooklyn College Association, it's $1,000, anything over $1,000. It used to be $1,200, and now being in the CUNY First system, the state guide is $999. So we have to stick within that $1,000 $999 rule. So it's actually been lowered. Involvement fair, diversity fair. I'm just trying to make sure we have any questions.
I have a
Anybody,
question. I do
jump
have
on
a,
in.
yeah, I have a question for about So Fed Up, which is supposed to, it's a referendum club. So Lily, I know you asked that question. What specifically do you want to ask about So Fed Up?
Okay, thank you. So basically, we had, I'm the treasurer now of the club. We had a lot of problems last semester, going from Zoom to Microsoft to a lot of other platforms, with people who either who couldn't either, sorry, give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Either people who who are mute or people who you can't see, you know, trying to, you know, accommodate everybody's needs, right? So we thought that it would be best to have people who are either could be virtual or to be in person, because sometimes the Wi-Fi will go out, sometimes, you know, things will not connect properly, and to have, you know, sign language and all these other things, and it just every time something would happen, and our group number dropped like dramatically. Like I'm talking about like a lot, like from having so many people. I mean, I don't really know numbers because I only just joined spring semester, but if I can understand correctly, I'm talking about a few hundred people to about maybe 10 people. It's like really dramatically dropped because only people weren't accommodated for their needs and in the club when they really like should have, with because all the platforms kept changing, and only because we can't, how many platforms can you know be accommodated. So I'm wondering if there was a way that for those who want to be in person so that they can be accommodated for their needs to be a part of some sort of club, can they come in person?
So coming to campus, it's a multitude of things that goes beyond our control as a Central Depository and SAIL. It has to go through Vice President Jackson, and you're going to need proof of vaccination or proof of testing. And right now they're saying that CUNY's stating that if you're going to come on campus, you have to be vaccinated, unless for religious purposes or other ailments. So it's not an easy process to get on campus, and it really has to go through VP Jackson. I really don't have much information on that, but VP Jackson would be the person that you'd have to speak to try to get on campus. And even with that, it may be denied only because of the circumstances of what CUNY's doing with students going on campus.
Okay.
think
So
I
if
wanna-
there's proof for the vaccination or whatever it is there a way that we can do virtual? And I mean, whoever it is to contact, I just don't know who it is.
Well, if you want to do virtual on-campus events or in-person events, you're going to have to go before the review board, right? And the review board has to approve it, because it's going to be a matter of having one table, one person to a table. If you have two, have your social distancing. Also, for students to come to your event, there has to be a limited number of students to come to your events, and you have to have proof of social distancing. There has to be an RSVP aspect to it, because those that are coming to the event have to be vetted for vaccination or testing before they can get on campus. So it's a multitude of steps that needs to be adhered to before you can have that. If you want to occupy the office, that's not even doable at the moment. But you can also reach to VP Jackson if you have some special circumstances where you want to be on campus at your offices. So you can email me, and I can start a conversation with you and VP Jackson, and then we can take it from there.
Okay, thank you so much. Can I have your email?
I just want to also
Yeah,
build
I'll
on
put
that
it
for
out.
one quick second, and we'll get back to the chat for questions. Lily, you also mentioned, and I know this was a concern for SoFed Up last year. We worked with Austin and Doreen about that. The different platforms, the different accessibility on those platforms, Wi-Fi issues. I know that these may be ongoing issues, and I'm sorry that some of them have not been addressed or haven't been cleared or fixed. But please note that when you do reach out, that those are some of the issues. I know that there's been different conversations with ITS and disability services and all different things to try to make the platforms as inclusive as possible, and it just hasn't worked. There's no excuse for that. But I know that there's been conversation, so I don't want you to think that it is not being discussed or considered, or I know there are conversations. I know that things haven't worked the way that you guys have needed them to. So mention that, Let's bring it up again. Let's have those conversations to see if we can get some of those accessible ways or platforms or just things that your group may need, which might be outside of, it doesn't necessarily seem that you need to meet in person. I think it's more of an accessibility issue. And I think that that's really important to know. So I think make sure you have those conversations still, and hopefully this semester we can get some leeway on them, okay? Because I wanted to let you know that I heard that part of your piece. It's not necessarily meeting, it's the platforms in which you're meeting on. Okay. Someone
Right,
has,
but it's the meeting and because of accessibility, a lot of them need to have both. You know?
I'm not the expert, but I definitely think we need to continue that conversation. So let's continue it, okay? And we'll do our best to help you as best as we can. Somebody has a question about Bulldog Connection. I'm intrigued. Please tell us your question. Where's Teresa? I don't see the question. You're gonna put it in the chat? I probably have the answer. What is the question about Bulldog Connection? Is Teresa still here or did she leave us?
Not sure.
All right, Teresa, you jump in anytime you want. Does anybody else have any questions?
I do.
Louis, go ahead, jump on in.
Okay.
And then Samia, we'll go back to you. Okay, Samia's next. I just want to make sure.
Okay. Thanks. I
Go
know
ahead.
we're running over. I know one of the questions was about going to the review board for events that are on campus. What about events for that are held off campus?
I think I actually just put that in the chat too, Hamilton.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You did?
Um,
Okay.
for me, it's gonna be the same process.
Yeah. And Jessica, please correct me on this because you probably know more of this about this than I can. If you're having an event on campus, off campus, and you did not submit an ERF, right? Working College is not responsible for what happens at that event. Okay. If you're not a registered club and you decide to go and have an event off campus, Working College is not responsible for what happens at that event. And you cannot use Brooklyn College name to promote that event. So if you are part of a club, you can't say Hamilton's club, part of Brooklyn College is hosting this event. You can't even use the club's name if you're in one not registered and one you did not submit an ERF. Because God forbid something happens, we are in the era of COVID. If something happens and someone catches COVID while off campus, Brooklyn College is not responsible for that. Just putting it out there.
And to build, if you are not a registered club and you go and have an event on campus, you cannot utilize your budget to reimburse expenses, to pay anybody. If you have not put an event request in and you are not a registered club, your budget does not exist. It cannot be used.
And
So,
also just know that student government has the power to discipline clubs that do things that require disciplinary action. And by this disciplinary action, maybe a suspension, maybe a lack of submitting events for a period of time or whatever it may be, but it's going to be at the discretion of student government and depends on the severity of the, I don't know, whatever occurred. And I'm not taking these examples from thin air. It has happened where clubs have posted events on Instagram and social media sites indicating they're part of Brooklyn College and the club is not registered. There's been incidents where students come out of pocket and pay for events and come and ask Jessica for money for reimbursement. So, that can happen. Those are all flaggable situations by student government should they choose to enforce it. Just putting it out there.
And then there was a question for Hamilton that asked, that is from Curtis. He is a co-president, but he is not listed as such on Bulldog Connection.
Okay, great question. So Bulldog Connection doesn't have co-presidents as a roster attribute, right? It's president, vice president, things of that nature. If your club's constitution does not state that it has co-presidents, then you have to go by what your club constitution states, which is president, vice president, treasurer, and so forth and so on. If it does have that, if your constitution does have a co-presidency in it, reach out to me and I can make the adjustment accordingly to reflect co-presidency. But it has to be on your constitution, in your constitution. And if it's not in your constitution and you wish to put it on your constitution, you have to amend the constitution. And if you're a USG, you have to submit the amended constitution to the leadership of USG and they have to sign off on it. If you're a GSO, you have to submit the amended constitution to GSO and they have to sign off on it. And then the presidents of the respective clubs will sign off on it. And then that's when it gets placed into action.
I think we got to all the questions in the chat. Anything else?
I got a question.
Go ahead, jump on in.
So I've had requests, budget requests from people, so that include some things that I'm not sure if they could be included in, if they could be paid with student activity fees. So prizes for raffles, what would be allowed under that or nothing?
I would need to know specifics. I'm also going to send out to all the treasurers and to you the expense categories for student activity fee. So if something doesn't fall into those expense categories, you as the club funding council can actually deny them. But the group should know what they should be using the funding on. Prizes get a little tricky. Like I said, need to know the specific of them. If we were on campus, sometimes groups would have fundraisers and they raise funding at their events, they charge an admission, and then they would pay out a prize that way if it's a monetary prize or something, a gift card. They can't utilize the budget to pay for that. They can't take funding from their budget and pay for a prize to give it to someone. So again, I need to know more of the specifics to see if something that can or can't be done. So I'm going to keep it very general, because it can go in a lot of different directions. So if you want to share that with me and then we kind of flesh it out to even see if it's something that can be done, we'll figure it out from there.
Okay, what about gifts for specific people, be they board members, club members, or faculty that are being honored?
Gifts are a big no-no. They become, I have to be honest, they become very difficult to pay for. Remember, even student activity fee gets audited. So because even though student activity fee is less restrictive than some of the other monies that the college gets, when they see a gift, it's a red flag. The only way that students generally will work around that is they order promo items for their groups, and maybe they want to give out t-shirts at their event. But remember, it has to be something that's not personalized. It's not given, like it wouldn't be a pair of shoes, because only a person who wears a size 8 could wear a specific size. You want to give things away or purchase things that can be given to anyone. So if you have USG t-shirts and you want to give everyone on campus a USG t-shirt, everyone can have it. If you wanted to give, a specialized gift from USG that only some people can utilize, that's when it becomes problematic. Does that answer your question?
What about generalized gifts like that, like t-shirts, but only being given to the e-board?
But think about the gift itself can be given to anyone.
But if
So
the
that would be
only
so
going,
that would
if
be
the
okay.
club's ordering 5 to give to the e-board, that's okay?
That would be okay. They can order 5 and give it to the e-board. I mean, again, you want to maximize it, so they probably should order more and give them out at their events to anybody that comes to their events. Again, think about it in that sense, but they're not personalized gifts. We get into trouble when things are personalized with people's names. I know we personalize with USG, but like I said, anyone can use it. No one's going to want to wear a t-shirt that says, I'm USG, I'm David Dweck, besides David Dweck. You know what I mean? So I want you to think in terms of that big picture. How can it be given to everyone?
So one last thing on this. If we want to honor someone with their certificate and it's just a piece of paper, do we have to print that out under ourselves, or could we use club budgets to do that?
That's fine. I think utilizing club budgets to print a certificate is a small nominal thing, and that would be okay.
Thank you.
Certificates are fine, easy peasy. It's not monetary value. Remember, it's something of monetary value. You couldn't just hand out, gifts that are of all this value. You want to recognize someone for their service to your group, that's a little different. Okay. Yolanda, you have your hand up. I'm assuming that it's part of this.
Yes, so as part of our budget, because as a requirement for graduation, we need to attend conferences. Can we put in conference fees for our students? Like as a budget request?
As of right now, you can request trips and conferences to GSO and let them know that you plan on attending a conference. But as of right now, everyone is grounded unless that conference is virtual.
It's all virtual,
Okay,
like
So-
just the conference fees.
but you would have to, like, if you want your budget to cover the cost of registration fee, you would work that into your budget. And
Yes.
GSO would say, yes, we're gonna
So-
give you X number of dollars.
Got
and
it.
you can say, we're gonna pay for this virtual conference.
Got it. So we could put that is allowed, like conferences. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Jessica, could you talk a little bit about registered vendors and where we can find that list?
Well, we do have a working vendor list in Bulldog Connection under the documents and forms. So Central Depository does put a lot of the forms and form samples that we've been working with. I'll get to the chat in one quick second. We do have a working vendor list. However, I want to give you a big however on that. We are now entering all of our purchasing into CUNY First. So the working vendors that we worked with in 2019 may not all be registered vendors in the CUNY First system. I'm working on getting people registered. I'm working on finding out who's registered, who doesn't have to be registered. But in order for us to pay anybody, because we're working within the CUNY First system, all of our vendors must be registered. So if you have something that you want to purchase, you can refer back to our vendor list. You can get a quote for the item that you want from that vendor list. But I may also recommend other vendors that I know are registered that would be easier to purchase from. So we're going to leave the working vendor list up, but it may evolve and change over the course of the year. Don't be afraid. We're just trying to make it easier. So right now, some of them might be registered, some of them might be not, but that's the vendor list that you can work from. So it's in the documents tab in Bulldog Connection. Somebody wrote, I hope that answers your question. If alumni planned an event and our chapter Instagram promoted, do we have to write an ERF for it? You're not the host. So if you're looking to invite people to an event that you're not hosting or let people know that exists, I don't think that's a problem. It's when you're the host. So if you were hosting it and then you posted it on Instagram and you didn't put an event request form in, that would be problematic.
This sounds like a Greek organization. Is that right, Justin? All right. No? Yes?
Even so, even if it's an alum, yeah, I mean, even so,
Well, it's different because we're talking about liability. So here's the bottom line. When it comes to Greeks, you have to be aware of the fact that it's your name on it. If something happens at that event, right, that's important to know. So if you as the undergraduate chapter are going to be at this event, then you essentially are going to be co-sponsoring it. Because then if something goes wrong, this is especially difficult for Greeks. You will get in trouble. It doesn't matter. So and I emphasize this as as an advisor for Kappa Sigma. We have insurance. Okay, when things go wrong, who's gonna pay? So it's not anymore a question about the ERF. It's also about making sure that you're doing things the right way. If your alumni are going to do something with your name on it, chances are Brooklyn College's name is on it too. Whether or not they know that it's correct, you need to make sure that your alumni are showing the respect that you as the undergraduate chapter deserves. All right, so, or the college chapter for that matter, because you can also include graduate students in these organizations. But I just want to emphasize that Greek-lettered organizations, fraternities and sororities, they have different standards from an insurance perspective, and that needs to be, I'm just saying you need to protect yourself, okay?
And I think maybe we should have a follow-up with just GLOs, but I'll talk to Hamilton about that, because that might be a conversation that should be a good conversation amongst those groups.
Yep.
But I mean, just just touching on it for today. So, so the next question is, so in-person conferences are a big no. As of right now, yes, they are a big no. They will probably be a big no, at least for the fall. I have not heard back yet from CUNY as far as when and if students will be allowed to travel. So if you want to do conferences, they should only be virtual. And at such time that we start to do in-person conferences and CUNY is allowing student groups to travel, I will be sure to let everyone know, because it's a huge portion of what our office does. So we working with the budgets. We work with students that attend all these conferences and get you approval to go away, and all the details and logistics of booking, registration, and all that good stuff. So, and once we know that we're going to start moving back to in-person conferences, we will let everybody know. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Hamilton has to head out. Does anybody have any more questions? I mean, if you want, I will be the last one out if anybody wants to stay and with USG and has any more questions that maybe you don't want to ask in the group setting or don't want to ask in the chat. Also, I'm gonna go ahead.
Yeah, I did not see the vendor list on Bulldog Connection. So if you don't mind, maybe we can figure that out.
You got it. It should definitely be there. I will double check for you, but it should be in the documents tab.
All right.
If you don't see it, again, let me know. It should be there. I also put my email in the chat. If anybody has any budget specific questions, definitely reach out to Tom and Lou from GSO, to David from USG, and any of the club directors and leadership in USG. I think this was really great. I'm happy to see people back. It's a nice thing. And I'm glad to be able to share my knowledge with you all. I miss you all. You have no idea. So
we just wanted to say from USG a big thank you to Jessica and Hamilton for coming today and answering all of these questions. Also, thank you to all the leaders for just coming to the event today and getting the information, as well as our club director, our treasurer, and the GSO officers that were here today. Keep in mind, you can reach out to any of us, support@bcstudentgov.org, treasurer@bcstudentgov.org, clubs@bcstudentgov.org, as well as GCO@bcstudentgov.org. Come to us first if you don't know who to go to, and we can direct you to who to go to. And other than that, I can stay on with Jessica as well if someone wants to linger and ask questions, but if not, thank you all for coming today. If anybody wants to say anything else, feel free to.
I found the document. So you have to be in the home setting. So you click on the home tab, and then there are 3 columns, the 3 yellow columns. Under event FAQs and documents, there is a link for FAQ, and then it says you can find all the documents that you need to aid in your event requests here. So then I click on that, and then I get to this drop down, and I see 4 folders, and I'm looking through those folders now to see if I can find the vendor list. So that's where we are.
So what you're trying to tell me, is we have to make it more accessible. Which we will.
Gave you that impression, Jessica?
Which we will. It shouldn't have to be that much quick click through. All right, I guess maybe just because I know where it is, I just go directly in. If you
found it, fall 2020 PDF. Got it.
Yeah. Okay.
It was the last. Yes, it was in the last page. Very good. Okay.
You know why? Because they're done alphabetically, and it's listed under working vendor list.
Yes.
That's why. All right. So that doesn't help you. Okay. Good to know. Let me see how I can get some more things front and center. There's also a lot of documents in there. So I think what I may need to do is comb through and really put together what is important, and maybe should kind of be like, hey, this is important, and maybe create a folder for the important ones and then work from there.
Folder on the top that says 2021, 2022.
Yeah, I think there are 5 buttons: home, events, organizations, news, forms. Let's just add a 6th button that says documents and call it a day. Or,
It should be there.
well, it's
Yeah,
not
I
on the
have
top.
that.
It's not the top 5. We don't have a link that,
Interesting, because I have it. Okay, if
Yeah.
you click on next to your circle, like right upper right-hand corner,
Mhm.
there's a little thing with dots.
yeah, the 9 dots.
Okay, click
Louis,
on
why
that.
don't you share your screen?
You don't have to share your screen. I know a Bulldog connection. You don't necessarily have to share your screen, but if you want to, that's up to you.
Yeah,
There's 9 dots. It says manage. Go to manage.
here, I'll just find this. Oh, here you go. All right. All right, you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
So
So
now
I'm-
these
Go here, manage.
manage.
Okay.
Click
All
on
right.
any of the memberships that you're in. So you
All
can
right.
click on
Let's go to
the first
AMSA.
one. Let's go to
I
AMSA.
miss AMSA, yeah. All right.
Okay.
And we've got, and then there's,
Yeah, click on that.
okay,
Again, maybe too much click through.
okay. There's an Action Center Home down here.
Yeah, no, there's a whole slew of things that come up on the side. That'll say you can make a news post for AMSA. You
Oh.
can document. So you're
Well,
missing.
I'm not on the e-board, so that's
Might be
different.
it. Okay, so if you're
But-
on the e-board of any of those.
Well, so like, for example, you see home events, organizations, news, and forms,
Mhm.
right? So in order for me to get to the documents, I have to click over here where it says here.
Okay.
All right, and now we're in it. Okay, so that's a very small link. And then it's not this one or this one, it's the last
So
one.
again, there's a lot of pieces,
There
so
it
I
is.
may have to, I
Right.
got you.
That's
What I
all,
may
but,
have to do is get that more onto the home.
right, and then also it's kind of like, it does
Yeah,
sort
'cause
some
all
of
the-
them.
All the
But-
BCA stuff is there, but it has to be cleaned up a bit. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
That's
I'm
all.
glad to see, I don't see it from your angle, so I'm glad to see
Right.
it from that angle to see that that angle doesn't work. So for me, it'll help because now we can clean it up a bit. Okay. So we got to get the documents a little more set up. What I also want to do in creating that treasurer's working group is I want to email some of this stuff to the treasurer so they have it. You know, my goal really is to have a whole group of treasurers that now will have all this stuff that they don't have to click through and, you know.
Can you make a
where it kinda
CD
creates a
page on
toolbox.
Bulldog Connection?
What happened?
Can you make a CD